B1.
Now, your company, HP, is actually known probably for more than anything else for its printers. I mean, in terms of the public market, in terms of the retail market. What did you do that made your product a leader in its field?
Okay, of course, I would like to say that we had brilliant strategy, and we did our homework in market research, and we just hit home run. And I would say there was some part luck in this. But the key behind all this is, if you notice that at the time when HP entered the printer marketplace, which is in the mid-'80s, we introduced our first laserjet in 1984. If you look at the world of personal computer printing at that time, you'll notice two things. Number one, personal computers actually is just on the rise. It was like when IBM PC was starting to get more popular. And then if you look closely, you will notice that almost all the printers at that time were so-called dot matrix printers that were very noisy, and that they really didn't have very good quality. You always have to look very hard before you can really read the print. And when HP decided to enter the printer marketplace, I like to use one of our retired vice president's famous words or famous quotes. He used to say, well, you never attack a fortified hill. You want to pick your little hill where there's, almost like nobody dominating, and then you want to occupy that, and hopefully that would grow to become the mainstream. And that is exactly what we did. At that time, the whole world is making so-called impact printers, dot matrix and so on. And HP decided to totally ignore that market and focus on the so-called non-impact. So we introduced the laserjet, which is a non-impact technology, in '84, and then we introduced the DeskJet in '87, both non-impact.
This kind of by choosing a non-impact printer mold, one would think that you actually opened yourself towards entry into a kanji environment. You gave yourself an advantage, which the impact printers probably didn't have. Is that a fair assumption?
In terms of print quality, it's absolutely true, because one of the drawbacks of a impact technology is there's only so many pins on a head, and you can't really get high resolution output. For example, usually the best impact printer is about 180 dpi, and then with non-impact we can easily go to 600 dpi, dots per inch, which is the resolution of the printer. So the finer the resolution, the sharper the image, the quality, and the characters or the print becomes better and better. So non-impact technology gives you much better resolution, so that kanji character is much more complex character than alphanumeric, and therefore the high resolution really is a blessing to the kanji world.
So you have something here known as MC squared, measurement, computing, communications. What is this basically?
Basically, if you look at our company, there are many parts of HP which makes, there are many competent parts of our business. For example, we're a world leader in the measurement world, in our traditional business. And then we're a significant player in the workstation business, the CAD/CAM business, and also in the server business for the large business Unix server. And then we have tremendous networking capabilities through that not only connects computer but integrate everything, measurement systems, computation systems, and everything into a system. So for a lot of our customers, which are very large corporations that does both manufacturing, design, and then it's typically vertical integrated corporation. You have payroll, you have all kinds of databases, and then you have the R&D, and then you have all kinds of testing and so on. We're one of the few companies probably in the world that can provide you with all the components that can do your job, because we have all the components that can tie everything together.
Do you mean to say that you have a single computer unit which you will place in a company that does both CAD/CAM and payroll and word processing and communications? How does it work?
No, it's probably more efficient if you, for example, your design department would probably use workstations, and then your accounting department probably would use a different terminal, because they are much lower cost. You don't need the high resolution screen nor the horsepower to run the payroll as a terminal. So you would probably select the equipment that makes more sense from a financial standpoint. However, in the corporate wide, you can have the network that ties in if certain areas, certain information or database need to be shared, or certain information or files need to be passed among the various departments section, you could actually tie that all together through a network.
Now tell me, every time I open the financial pages in Japan, I see the word multimedia. If you can attach the word multimedia to a stock, it's destined to rise, right? I mean, if it's the trend of the future, your company must be also involved in it to some degree. What is going on?
Okay, I think the desire to have so-called multimedia has always been around. It's just that the technology at that time makes it not commercially viable because the pieces are very expensive, or the software is just not there. But I guess the key part is the computers in those days doesn't have the horsepower to do all the stuff that we want to do now with our PCs. So if you look at the PCs 3 years ago from what we have today, we're talking about 486, machines, 66 megahertz clock speeds. All these translate to computing power. The processor can handle more and more information and more at a faster and faster. So it handles not just images, it handles sound and so on. And now you can have very high resolution monitors that virtually can give you picture quality output combined with a CD quality digital sound. Then that's really, that's what we call multimedia.
B2.
Today we are with Mario Rivas, Deputy General Manager, Paging Products Operations of Nippon Motorola Limited. Well, tell me a little bit about Motorola. Mario, it's an American company originally. How did it start?
Well, Motorola started a little over 60 years ago as basically a battery eliminator company trying to put electronics away from the wall plug. And in 1939, at the beginning of World War II, the company was in a position where they could supply the U.S. Army or U.S. Armed Forces with portable walkie-talkies. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the walkie-talkies you see in World War II movies were Motorola products.
Oh, they are. How did the name Motor get in Motorola?
Very interesting question. The following product that made a great deal of success and actually changed the name to the present name of Motorola was a radio for cars. And Motorola means sound in motion.
Oh, I see. That's interesting. When did Nippon Motorola begin in Japan?
Okay, as an entity, Nippon Motorola started a little over 20 years ago. Prior to that, Motorola has done business in Japan, but not under a consolidated umbrella like we do today under Nippon Motorola.
What kind of business is Nippon Motorola involved in?
In Japan, we represent all the businesses that the company has worldwide. And the major groups that we represent are the cellular telephones, semiconductors, paging, which in Japan are called pocket bells, computers, as well as infrastructure for cellular and pocket bells.
I see. And you're in charge of the pocket bells or the paging division. When was pocket bells or paging devices, when were they developed and when were they invented?
Late 50s in the United States is when the first pager pocket bell came up, and it's a misname because it was rather large. It was the size of a walkie-talkie.
What is the market for this? What are your customers like?
Our customers have evolved quite a bit. Now, from the professionals that we talked about at first, the second larger group of customers were firemen. Nowadays, if you go out in the street, the fastest growing segment is teenagers. And they use it to communicate with each other in very innovative ways. I'll give you a couple of examples. First, in the United States, as a father with teenagers, the telephone rings all the time, and it's usually not for you, but you must answer the phone. A couple of the parents I have talked to in the United States have given pagers to their teenage kids so that friends can page them, and that brings peace in the home.
But all they do is page them. Then what happens? They have to go find a telephone.
They'll have to call back, correct. Fortunately, both in Japan and the United States has very easy access to telephones. Plus, that's an advantage though, you can be selective of what phone calls you answer, and it will be at your convenience. But it brought peace to their minds, as well as they can page their teenage children anytime they want to. Now, there's always the worry, is he back from school, or is he gone to class, or where is he? Now they are a page away. In Japan actually has contributed a lot to the paging culture. They have created very sophisticated messages by using numbers. And they communicate rather interestingly. They even created a book and different numbers.
What can a pocket bell do now besides tell you to call one number?
Well, now it has developed into a portable messaging machine. In all countries, Japan included, you can receive multiplicity of numbers on the screen. It will display you a telephone number. And it can also receive information services like the Nikkei average or the Dow Jones Industrial Average, as well as news. So you could pay to a service to transmit the news you're interested in, and will receive it on a screen that is capable of displaying any characters.
There's some interesting products. One is, I think, called Kanako, which is a pager that displays not only numbers but also katakana letters.
That's right. There is part of the soft culture of sending messages is that they created a standard group of messages, and they are standard in the industry. If you remember CB messaging, you have 10-4 is I understand. So they have a similar group of messages. What we have been able to do is program them in the pager, in the pocket bell, so that when the message is received, instead of displaying the code, it will display the message in katakana for easy read. And it requires a prefix to it. That is extremely attractive to young people more than anybody else.
Is there a range? I mean, can you go to Maebashi from Tokyo and still receive things? Or I imagine there's a range of some kind.
The coverage is what you're referring to. It depends on your transmitters more than in your receivers in this case. In Japan, there are two providers of service, and both of them cover, I will say, 95% of all the population in Japan. So while there is a range, there's very few places in Japan where you cannot receive a page.
And your pagers are distributed in what channel? How is that done?
Well, today, the paging market in Japan is totally regulated. Therefore, the only people that can buy pagers from vendors is the service providers. In March of April of 1995, there's going to be a deregulation of the paging market, and there would be many distribution channels. As of today, the rules are not clear as of what kind of distribution channels will be allowed and which ones will not be allowed.
Do you have any plans to expand further into other pager-related businesses?
In reference to supplying service ourselves, we have no intention to become direct suppliers of service in Japan. We have a division of Motorola called the International Networks Division that has alliances all over the world. And in Japan, they have an investment on Tokyo Telemessage. But it would be, if we ever in the future decide to increase our participation, it would be through that International Network Division.
I see. And so what your business now is primarily refining and enhancing the product you have.
That is correct. To introduce better, faster, smaller pocket bells.
And to prepare yourself for whatever happens next year in March or April when the deregulation comes.
That is correct. Number one goal this year.
B3.
Welcome, Ernie. Tell me about Domino's, how it opened, when and where did it happen at first here in Tokyo?
We opened our first store in Japan in 1985, and actually we were the first company to ever bring home delivered pizza to Japan, so we were doing a lot of pioneering effort back then. Since that time, we've now have 102 stores throughout Japan, and also have acquired the Dallas Pizza operation in Hawaii with another 23 stores.
You have different toppings here in Japan because there are people like variety in pizza here. Mm-hmm. But do you think that Domino's Pizza, as a pizza purveyor, will expand into other lines of food besides pizza?
We actually already have to some degree. We've added fried chicken, salads, and ice cream. we've developed a concept that we call total convenience. And what we've realized is that our customer eats the pizza for dinner or on weekends and holidays for lunch and dinner. But they don't just eat the pizza. They invariably eat it with other things. And until now, we only offer the customer pizza and Coke. So we were convenient if you just wanted pizza and Coke, but we're not convenient if you wanted anything else. So what we decided to do was to offer our customers all the things that they normally would eat with the pizza, which would be salads and ice cream and other drinks besides Coke. And also a very popular item, as you know, in Japan is fried chicken. So those are the things that we have done. And I have to say that we've been very lucky with that program.
As you expand throughout Japan, do you see different regions of the country with different preferences for toppings?
That's an interesting question. I think that if we were serving a Japanese food item, we would certainly have to adapt the taste for the various local biases, you know, usuaji and kansai, for example. However, when you're dealing with a foreign food product like pizza, the Japanese do not have any preconceived notion as to what it should taste like. So I think that we can serve the same product nationwide. And this has been the strategy done by both McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken very successfully. So we plan to do that because one of the key concepts in the fast food industry is to keep it simple. And we want to stick to that as much as possible.
What do you think will happen in the pizza delivery market, and what's in store for you with Domino's in the future?
Well, I have a very specific vision for Domino's Pizza in Japan. In the U.S., Domino's Pizza has approximately 5,500 stores. And if you go by the comparison in population, the U.S. has just about twice the population of Japan. So you could say that if they have 5,500 stores in the U.S., then we should have 2,750 stores in Japan. However, it is Western fast food. It's not ramen gyoza. So I don't think that it can ever be a mass market food segment like ramen gyoza is here. It's a niche market, but I believe the potential is at least 10% of the total market in the United States. So since Domino's Pizza has 5,500 stores in the U.S., I'm sure we can at least do 550 stores here in Japan. And if you will, the kind of rationale behind that is that McDonald's in the U.S. has over 10,000 stores, and McDonald's here in Japan has 1,000 stores, so that's just about 10%. So our company alone should be able to expand by 5.5 times.
One of the interesting things that you brought to the market was the idea of deliveries guaranteed within 30 minutes. That's kind of a fascinating thing, and I've ordered dozens of Domino's Pizza, and virtually every time it was within 30 minutes. But now I think, at least in the States, that 30-minute delivery rule has been suspended. Is that the case here, too?
Yes, it is, for different reasons. Well, first of all, to kind of respond to what you were talking about earlier, the 30-minute guarantee had a lot of impact in Japan, not only with yourself, but with just about every Japanese person who's ever tried to find their way around the city. And as you know, they do not have street names, or very few street names, and the numbering of the houses is not sequential. So finding your way around Japan or in Tokyo is almost an impossible task. And when we guaranteed 30 minutes, that was a very dramatic concept. And I mean, this is one of the few countries where even taxi drivers are always lost. So that really got the attention of everybody. And I believe that was very important to our success to date. However, in the United States, since then, the Domino's Pizza in the U.S. decided to drop the 30-minute guarantee. And the reason behind that is that there was a perception that perhaps due to the 30-minute guarantee, this might have caused drivers to drive fast. And the reality of the situation is that Domino's Pizza in the U.S. has a very strong corporate policy on safety driving, and a lot of the Domino's know-how is being able to make the pizza very quickly, and then we have a limited delivery area, so it should be able to be delivered within 30 minutes with plenty of time, because we do have a limited delivery area. The thing is that, though, the public perception in the U.S. was that perhaps because of that 30-minute guarantee, there was some drivers that would drive fast. And the U.S. being more of a litigious country, of course, that became an issue. So Tom Monahan, who owns Domino's Pizza in the U.S., decided that to avoid any future potential problems, the best thing would be to drop them. However, in Japan, because actually safety driving has always been a policy for us, and the perception of a 30-minute guarantee and safety driving is not an issue here. We did not drop it when they did in the U.S. However, recently we have dropped the 30-minute guarantee for another reason. We've decided to replace it with an even bigger guarantee, which we'll be introducing, which is we haven't quite got the final name right, but it's something like a total satisfaction guarantee. Or for any reason, whether it's late delivery or poor quality or poor service, they can get their money back on the pizza or a new pizza. And we think that that's a stronger guarantee. And given today's competitive environment, we feel that it's important to actually up the ante, if you will, on the guarantee and address the so-called customer satisfaction issue by expanding the guarantee.
B4.
I noticed that gasoline prices in the States, of course, are very, very cheap. How do you contrast that with, say, the extremely high prices, the relatively high prices of gasoline in Japan? Do you see those going any lower?
Well, to really understand the differences between the structures in the two companies, I think you have to take it apart. And you have to begin with the raw material. If you look first at the cost of raw materials, and let's assume for a moment the U.S. has about half of its own raw material and imports about half. Perhaps it has a little bit of advantage in its imported cost, and it's closer to some of the import providing areas. It's probably a little bit closer to the Arabian Gulf than Japan is. The other side of it is Japan imports 100%. Suppliers in the Arab Gulf, the Arabian Gulf, tend to have charged more for their base supplies moving east from the AG than moving west. If you look at formula prices, for instance, from Saudi Arabia today, the formula price for the same crude would cost a little bit more to move to Japan than it would to move to the United States. So you have a slight cost disadvantage to begin with. That's not the major difference, though. You bring your raw material to Japan the same as you do in the United States, whether it be from indigenous sources or from imported sources. The first thing you run into is a more efficient refining industry in the U.S. Bigger refineries, higher conversion refineries, running larger quantities of crude oil, able to gain unit cost efficiencies. After the product has come through the refinery, so there's another layer of advantage which is created. When product moves from refineries in the United States, most typically today it moves by pipeline. When product moves here in Japan, most typically today, it moves either by a very small coastal tanker or truck. The cost differential in moving that product by pipeline versus the cost of domestic internal coastal shipping freight or trucking here in Japan is a very large difference in the cost structure. Terminals where we store our products and make the ultimate distribution to the end user here in Japan tend to be very small. Land continues to be at a very high premium price. Terminals are small, therefore throughputs are low, and therefore unit costs again tend to be high compared to the United States. There's nothing like a super terminal here in Japan. Last but not least, if you look at the size of the final delivery, the size of the final delivery of the truck here in Japan, by regulation, is restricted. We can only deliver up to 20 kiloliters at a time. That's only about 55 or 60% of what the same delivery size can be in a location like the United States. You come through all of those layers and you look at the cost buildup in delivering the product to, let's assume it's either the end user or the dealer to sell, and there is significantly more cost built in to the Japanese system. And we've covered a huge component of that cost difference in the refining and in the handling of that product. Now, let's take a look at the tax structure that you're going to pay on that product. the current level of taxation before the consumption tax, 58.3, plus you've got to add about another 3.5 yen a liter for consumption tax. So we've got about 60 yen a liter tax here. If you take the highest taxes we could find anywhere in the U.S., both federal tax and both state tax, that tax in the U.S. might be about half of the level of here in Japan. And then you look at the other components in this. The dealer margins here are a little bit higher than they are in the U.S., but only marginally higher because the dealer's costs are significantly higher. Why should the dealer need more margin in Japan than he gets in the United States? The United States is basically a self-serve market today. Mother, Dad, Jimmy, and Susie get out of the car. They pump their own gasoline. They clean their own windshield. They check their own oil. The Japanese consumer, up to this date, really hasn't given any indication of a willingness to do that. It probably is the best full-serve market in the world. But the customer's got to pay for that. So let me wrap it all up. Go back to that barrel of crude oil we brought into that refinery. It's a little more costly to refine it here. It's a lot more costly to move it. It's more costly to put it through the terminal. It's more costly to deliver it. You deliver it with full service, which has got more cost behind it. And all of that adds up to a significantly higher price in Japan versus a market like the U.S. Similarly, the same thing could be said about Europe or other markets of the world.
How differently do you promote your product?
I don't think so differently at all. I think the subject of a promotion may be different, the objective of the promotion may be different, but the methodology is essentially the same. You may very well be promoting something in another marketplace which is closely in line with consumer desires, consumer drives there, as opposed to promoting something else in Japan which is aligned with consumer research, consumer desires, and drives here. But the methodology of promoting at the retail store tends to be constant throughout the world. Now, obviously, there are varying levels and degrees to which entities go and into which certain markets find themselves involved in promotions. Promotions tend to work in Japan. Customers like promotions. They're a very low-cost way of letting the customer know you appreciate their business. And in fact, many of our competitors in the petroleum industry use promotions in lieu of using more expensive media advertising.
Let's just go back a little bit to the prices. In the popular perception, and as well as at the bank, the yen is now much stronger against the dollar than it was a year ago. So from the point of view of the customer, well, shouldn't this result in lower prices at the pump?
Since January of 1993 through December of 1993, prices have come down 6 yen a liter for motor gasoline. Now, I think that happens a yen a liter at a time or a half a yen a liter at the time. And maybe we're all consumers too. Maybe we don't notice so much. But prices do reflect currency strengthening. Prices do reflect the value of raw materials. Prices do reflect the market. And while there are those who say, well, gee, they should have come down more, I can only tell you they have followed the pattern, certainly, of the currency strengthening and raw materials prices coming down at the same time.
This is the end of Side B.